arrived.
Yeah.
The sex therapist. The sanctuary know I'm in the area.
The sanctuary, okay.
Who are you?
Barbara,
The sex therapist.
I'm not a sex therapist.
Trina, the sex therapist, is just parking up.
You're not a sex therapist.
I'm from the donkey sanctuary.
And that's not a sex therapy sanctuary.
Just donkeys.
Just donkeys.
South Weatherfield Donkey Sanctuary.
Right. Would you like a chocolate finger, Barbara?
No.
The talk of the street.
Talk of the street.
The talk of the street.
Talk of the street.
The talk of the street.
Talk of the street.
The talk of the street.
Talk of the street.
Hello and welcome to the 1960s. Oh, sorry, wrong podcast. Hello and welcome to episode 211 of The Talk of the Street, an unofficial Coronation Street catch-up podcast that suggests maybe killing off some of these old stale storylines that are still kicking around. And I'm here all the way for Donkey Lady to hook up with Fish Guy. I'm Gavin.
And I have a uterus.
You do?
I do.
And I'm an ally for your uterus.
Thank you.
There we go.
It's a permanently unoccupied uterus, but nevertheless, I do have one.
Right.
Yeah.
And you ain't afraid to use it.
No.
I'm not sure what that means. How are you this week? No, what a terrible question to ask.
I'm back. I had a lovely trip.
Oh yeah, you were away.
Yes, I had a lovely trip. On the way out, Stelly and I stopped in Manhattan and went to the American Museum of Natural History, which is where the movie Night at the Museum is set.
That's
which
what
is
that museum is famous for, obviously.
It kind of is. There was a line to take a selfie with Dum Dum Gum Gum. So
there's a sentence you thought you were never going to hear.
Yeah. The Easter Island figure that calls Ben Stiller a dum dum and tells him to get him some gum gum.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
You've seen the movie.
I don't think I have I?
I'm pretty sure you have.
Don't think so.
We have it on DVD even.
Don't think so.
Because Stelly loves it so much. Sadly, the little cowboy dioramas, I think, were in the area where they're doing some work. So Stelly was not able to go and see the inspiration for the Owen Wilson character.
Wow.
But we did see Dum Dum Gum Gum and the Tyrannosaurus Rex and the elephants.
Excellent.
And the whales. So that was a lot of fun. And then we walked over to Central Park and went to
right there.
It is right
it's
there.
Just right there.
It is literally right there. And went to see the Imagine Mosaic and sat around and
which we've
sang
already
songs.
seen together.
Yeah, but Stelly hadn't.
Yeah.
Stelly, famous Beatles fan. 13-year-old Estella Peterson.
Is she? Is she famous?
She watched all of Get Back with me, so that I think is a testament.
Then, I guess.
It makes her a Beatles fan.
Yeah, I love New York, and so I was very jealous when I heard that you were in Manhattan without me.
Yeah.
And our little green Mini Cooper.
Oh God, I love that car.
Oh.
I love that car so much. I want it back. I miss it so much. Yeah, we got a rental because we typically get a rental when we're driving out. We don't want to put strain on our everyday cars.
Yeah.
So you came back from the rental place.
Plus, it's just fun
it's
to
fun
drive
to
a
drive
new
something
car.
new.
Right.
Yeah. So you came back from the rental place with this.
British Racing Green Mini Cooper.
Yeah. And it was so fun to drive. It was
really
so fun to
was.
drive, and it was great because I never lost it in a parking lot.
Nope.
I was never confused about where I parked because you can see it and you know it's yours. Unlike the red Equinox I drive on a daily basis, where at least 10 other mums in our town also drive red Equinoxes.
I've got into the wrong Equinox coming out of the QD. I thought, why is this car so tidy all of a sudden? So when you're in the Mini, did you ever say, you're only supposed to blow the bloody doors off?
No.
Yeah.
No. But it was funny because the closer we got to the East Coast, the more Mini Coopers we saw, you know, as well as like a ton of Teslas and other expensive cars.
Did you really see a ton of Teslas? Because I think you only ever see like one a month round about here.
I think we saw like 8. There's a Tesla charging station at Lisbon Landing now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah, and then spent a nice day with my mom. Went to see Lightyear with my mom and my nephews and my daughter.
It's a good movie.
Yeah,
I think
sorry.
it's a good movie. It's getting
good-
a lot of stick. I think it's a good movie.
Yeah. Yeah. Is it Pixar's best? No. But that's fine. It doesn't have to be.
Perfectly serviceable. Made me laugh.
You can be a good movie without being the best movie a certain studio has ever produced, because that's a tall order. But anyway, and then I came home through Canada. I got to go to Canada for the first time in like
Canada, I am in you.
2 years, 2.5 years. Oh, it was so nice getting into Canada. And I went to Niagara Falls before I went to Canada because I wanted to go to the American side, because I've been to the Canadian side twice
Yeah, and it's Blackpool
In
by
the-
a waterfall.
in the past 10 years. So it's funny that I've been to Niagara Falls 3 times in 10 years. But
There you go.
yeah, I really like the American side because it's more of a park
Yeah,
atmosphere.
it's a
and
bit kitschy at
They-
on the Canadian
and
side.
they have that statue of Tesla.
It was funny though, because when you texted me from the falls, it was like still early in the day, and I was like, I could be in Oakville in 5 hours. We could meet up for some British groceries,
Yeah,
but that seemed like a ridiculous thing to do,
right.
so I didn't do it. And then I didn't realise that you need to kind of book your trip over the bridge.
Well, that's what they say. But then, when I got there and showed the guy my QR code, he's like, no, just give me your passport. So
people.
it was weird having, the Canadian be the jerk this time and the American guy being nice.
Yeah, that is a
And typically that's
Turn up
not
for
the
the
way it
books.
happens.
right.
But anyway,
Shall
I
we-
am home now. How was your weekend without me?
It was fine. It was a little
Were you lonely?
bit ronry.
Oh,
A little bit.
yeah, Benny. You guys went to see Lightyear as well. It was funny. You
We've
guys
already
were.
spoken about Lightyear.
I know, but it was funny that we were in 2 different states and seeing it basically at the same time.
That is funny.
It is funny.
Shall we preamble, my dear?
Yes, please.
Give us some of that maple syrup, Corrie News.
Thought you were going to say to infinity and beyond, Corey News.
No, because it doesn't really fit that movie.
No, they do say it though.
Well, too many times, I think. Still a good movie.
Yes. Anyway, Sam seems invisible on the street lately, but for good reason, as Jude Reardon has been filming a short film called Something Missing, written by Casualty's Michael Stevenson and directed by Jude's own father, Paul Reardon. So he is absolutely the busiest little actor
Similar.
in the British
Christendom.
Isles.
Yep.
Yes.
Good for him.
Yeah. I expect him to be jumping over the pond and starting to make Hollywood movies here any day. Any
You do?
day. Yes.
That remake of Home Alone.
Oh God, no! Because they just did a remake of Home Alone and it was awful.
They did?
Because the kid was awful. The kid is like a bully, and is
Oh, Ashley
harassing.
B's in that.
Yeah.
And they make her English for some reason. Why can't she be Irish? She's got a lovely Irish accent.
Charlie DeMello has not allowed any grass to grow under him as he joins the cast of The Clothes They Stood Up In to be performed at the Nottingham Playhouse. Looking up plane tickets now for the premiere,
Isn't it?
whenever that is.
It's interesting the kind of move from TV to stage is quite a popular route.
Yes,
Very different discipline. One would imagine
right.
delivering the same thing over and over again
Right.
over several showings rather than you learn your lines once and then you forget them.
Right. But still, it's kind of the same, like, scheduling of working every day.
Very busy.
Yeah.
Busy.
Busy. But good for our Charlie. It looks like a Kraken play to be
Oh, does it?
in. And finally, some fun casting news for Coronation Street itself. As Jodie Pregner, she of BBC talent show I'd Do Anything fame, joins the cast.
Oh, yeah, I remember her.
Joins the cast as George's sister Glenda, who will also snag a job working in the Rovers. I'm assuming taking over Emma's empty space.
Glenda Undertaker.
Glenda, George and Glenda,
Yeah, that happens.
kind of reminds me of George and Martha, the hippopotamuses, and also the president and his wife.
George and Mildred.
Yeah, lots of George Anns.
I challenge you to name 2 more.
And that's Corrie News.
That is Corrie News, which historically brings us now on to World Podcast for Coffee. Thank you to DS Blondie for our coffees this week.
I know. How exciting is that? And all because you took the time to make a meme. A really well executed meme as well. I applaud because sometimes when people make those, the eyeglasses fall at like a janky rate.
It's not the first time I've made a Thug Life meme.
No.
Yeah, I made a Thug Life meme basically in honour of the way that DS Blondie spoke to Leanne.
Yes. Which was awesome.
You can't keep my sister here because she's a good person.
Oh, well, I'll just go get the keys then.
And there we go, and it seemed to be quite popular, and quite popular with Vicky as well.
Yes.
Who buys us our coffees this week with the message, "Thanks for your support." Well, thank you for your support, Vicky. We really appreciate it. I'm drinking my coffee this week out of a Talk of the Street mug.
A Talk of the Street mug?
Yeah.
Are those available somewhere?
They're available. Funnily, you should mention that. They're available at our merch store,
We have a merch store?
details of which will be available later in the podcast.
Should you maybe just give the details now?
I can't remember what they are. You can find all of this information at voggle.co.uk.
That's right. Voggle.co.uk. We famously own that.
What are you drinking yours out of? Oh, I think my soup mug, by the looks of things.
My I Turtly Love You mug.
It's a good
Yes,
mug, that.
It is a good mug because it's shaped like a turtle.
And it fits a whole tin of soup in it. With room to dip some bread.
Oh,
Which not all of our mugs do.
that's true.
Yeah, thanks again to Vicky for buying us our coffees. If you want to buy us next week's coffees, you can go to ko-fi.com. That's ko-fi.com/the Talk of the Street. You think for all the memes that I've made of Mr. Osborne as a fanny that we... Anyway, let's not go down that road. And now, new tubes. This is a section where we talk about what's new on our YouTube channel. We hit 500,000 views this week.
Wow.
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 Still about 50 or 60 subscribers away from the 1,000 mark, so I'm about a month behind in my projections, which is disappointing because doing projections like this is part of my job. Oh well, don't tell my boss.
You are your boss.
We've got the regular stuff. We've got last week's podcast. We've got last night's Corrie in under 4 minutes. And our extra is the superb cut that I've been working on for the last 6 months, which is Blanche's best bits from the year 2000 episodes of Classic Corrie. Half an hour of Blanche quips and put downs. It's a good half hour.
Sounds it.
It's a fantastic half hour, actually. The last clip in particular is just wonderful.
You know, I haven't played that Coronation Street phone game in a long time that had Blanche and Ken in it.
I played
Remember
it for, I think, 10 minutes and then got bored with it. It was just find all the words. It was a word game thing, wasn't it?
Right, yeah, but then you got to design like the inside of the Rovers and the inside of Ken's.
Which
flat.
doesn't interest me in the slightest.
No.
Didn't your ex-husband get us a Coronation Street game?
Oh yeah, with that. Was it John or was it my mum? I think maybe it was John. It's like a DVD game. We have a DVD
We
player
don't have
now.
a DVD player. Now we do. We can go play that game.
We can.
Let's do that right now.
No.
Oh, okay. Anyway, if that tickles your fancy, head over to youtube.com/the Talk of the Street podcast, smash that subscribe button, and treat the notification bell with extreme violence.
What?
And now, this.
Ooh. Oh, welcome.
Oh, welcome to Last Year Tonight with me, John Oliver. Just enough time to quickly talk about Make Daisy Great Again.
Make Daisy great again. Was this when Daisy traveled to America and tried to run for president?
That's right. This was Daisy travelling to... No, this was Daisy offering to buy the deposit for the Rovers for Jenny. And Jenny thought Daisy was a bit too Make Daisy Great Again.
Oh.
I was Gavin and you were ready to be footloose and fancy free.
Yes, we don't get that opportunity this year.
No,
Children.
thanks to band camp and soccer camp.
Right. Damn it.
That meant road trips, dead presidents and R-rated movies. And we didn't know where we were going to be next week this time last year.
Oh.
And similarly, we don't really know where we're going to be next week. This week. We can narrow it down to 2 states. We'll either be in Colorado or Utah. Probably Utah. But
Yeah.
where precisely?
Where
I don't
precisely
know.
in Utah? Who knows?
We need to figure out how we're going to do something like this, or something like the Dollywood episode that we put together last week.
Oh God, that was so much fun. That was like my favorite thing of all time because of the fact that Jane and Georgia did the whole Dollywood thing.
Yeah, that was
God,
quite
I love
special.
them.
It was very special.
It was very special. You know, they're such good people and willing to play along.
For those who don't know, we were in Dollywood round about this time last year, and on the Twitter for the Talk of the Street, we'd been talking about characters who say London.
London?
Whenever London gets mentioned or somebody going to London is always responded with a London. And so we were in Dollywood, and I think I tweeted something out to Georgia and Jane saying, you know, if you want to say Dollywood in that style, I wouldn't complain about it. Mm-hmm. And they did, from their own homes.
Right.
Took time out of their own days to be part of a silly joke as we were walking around Dollywood. It was quite exceptional.
Yes, we watched the clips of them while we were on the Dollywood train.
We did. Yeah, good times. So with Harvey's trial fast approaching, the rubber is hitting the road for Sharon and Leanne, which hopefully won't give Natasha cause to shout at Nick again. The frequency of Summer's toilet visits gives Billy some cause for concern over a Father's Day meal and forces him to reconsider a promise that he made to Todd. Advice from Bernie gives Gemma some food for thought regarding Alad's implant operation. Nina's gift for Roy would bring a tear to a glass eye. Emma and Curtis's attraction to each other continues to fall victim to their own misunderstandings. The double glammy pyramid scheme, approaches critical mass when Daisy tries to secure a bank loan and Sean tries to expand. And thanks to Lena, Tyrone's midlife crisis takes another leap forward as he becomes the proud owner of a motorcycle and the reluctant owner of a Romanian flag on his leg. That tattoo is a year old.
And when was the last time we saw it? A year ago?
51 weeks ago, I think. We've seen it twice. Paul's kumquat is too sour. Rita is scheming. And no one is joining the territorial army. Our moment of the week was Daniel screwing over Daisy's double glammy scheme. And our boring moment of the week was Billy talking about Nicole Kidman's coat. And that was Coronation Street.
Right,
and the Talk of the Street, the same last year.
In that miniseries she was with Hugh Jackman, where he was the baddie and she was his wife. And it takes 6 episodes for her to figure out that her husband is evil. Not Hugh Jackman. Why did I say Hugh Jackman? Hugh Grant. Oh my God, I got my Hughes mixed up.
That's all right. I wasn't listening. Shall we dive in, my dear?
Yes, please.
Now we have an extra episode to talk about because you were on the road last Friday, so we didn't talk about that. So let's quickly go through the highlights of what happened last Friday.
Right.
Maxie's friends convince him to take Sonia out for dinner as she's from a wealthy family and won't be impressed by his house. Meanwhile, Bernie thinks Gail's bronze tie elephant is cursed, and Audrey shows no signs of laying off the booze. Brian and Kathy make up, but after further consideration, she decides that she can't move to Cornwall with him, and this means that they're splitting up. So Kathy has an emotional farewell with Brian, Alex, Yasmin, and Roy before she drives off in Roy's Woody. I think that was the moment of the week for last week. It would have been Brian's realisation that this is it.
Yeah.
Because the two of them in the cabin with each other, I thought was just lovely. Because Brian was really upset.
Yeah.
And Kathy was more kind of pragmatic about it.
Yeah. Kathy was not upset.
Well, she was a little sad. She was sad, but
yeah. But she knew it was time to go.
But Brian's emotion was getting me emotional.
Well, he fucking deserved it.
He did, but Peter Gunn is
right.
You forget how good an actor he is because he doesn't get chances to do things like this all that often.
Yeah, it's true.
Because when he did that, he was extraordinary.
Even in his movie roles, he doesn't get a chance to do this sort of thing that often.
Really?
Yeah.
That's disappointing.
Yeah. I still think this was a crappy way for Kathy to go out.
Utterly shit way for her to go out.
Utterly shit. And does the character and the exceptional actress no favors.
No, and to get her to move to just another bit of Manchester,
right?
At least send her to Scotland,
right? Or Thailand, or Australia,
yeah,
or America.
Even the even the poison pen stuff from last year,
Right.
it would have been a better way to go out under that kind of umbrella.
Right.
That still wouldn't have been great, but it would have been better.
Yeah.
Anyway, Debbie notices that there's money stolen from the company account, and Leanne has to admit that she took it to pay for Toya's new lawyer and promises to pay it back. Toya is released on bail, but remains distant from Leanne, who she thinks doesn't believe her anymore.
And Debbie points out that what Leanne did was illegal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jack,
Which Leanne doesn't seem to care about.
Jack overhears Kev and Debbie talking about how Tyrone was his mum. Was his mum. Tyrone was his mum.
Tyrone was... I can see it. I can see Tyrone and Kev having a torrid affair.
There's a story.
Yes. Yes. Make it so.
How Tyrone was with his mum and how Tyrone thought Jack was his. But it all blows over very quickly when Tyrone reveals how much Kev, Abby and him, they all love Jack. And that's in the past and everyone's friends now, so who cares about your history? Abby gets supervised
Or
custody.
your own personal feelings about the fact that this has been kept from you your whole life.
Don't care about that. Abby gets supervised custody of Alfie and moves in with her supervisor, I guess. It's only Wendy Flamin Crozier. Or Wendy Flamin.
Papadopoulos.
Wendy Flamin Papadopoulos. And that was last Friday's episodes, which brings us on to this week's Hard Debate.
Already? No, because we haven't gotten to Tim's.
I just wanted to get an idea of, take a temperature gauge, if you like, of the Corrie audience as to which one of these storylines. Some of these are more prevalent this week than others, but they're all kind of active storylines. Which one of these Corrie storylines has outstayed its welcome the
I thought
most?
this was all the Tim one. I was very confused. Never mind. Carry on.
Was it Tim's Boaby issues? Was it Audrey getting pished? Was it Summer's wool collection? Or the Fizz Tyrone shenanigans? And the Fizz Tyrone shenanigans I don't think doesn't really earn its place that well. But I was really expecting Audrey getting pished to be pretty high in the rankings, but
no, it wasn't.
Summer all the
way.
Was last. Audrey getting pished was 9.6%, Fizz and Tyrone 10.8%, Tim's Boaby 18.5%, but a remarkable 61.1% thought that Summer's wool collection has definitely outstayed its welcome. And when you think that it's been going on for a year, that's maybe that maybe feels about right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was expecting more for Audrey. All right, let's dive into this week's storylines then, and we will start with Max Cringe. On Monday, Max, I'm going to warn you now, I'm going to say Shona instead of Sonia and vice versa, probably all the way through this.
Shona and Sonia?
It's just, they're far too close.
Sure.
And then now we've got a Stephen in the show. Jesus. Anyway, we'll get to that. On Monday, Max is texting Sonia, the big day is still on and he wants a haircut in preparation. David claims to be busy as fuck at work with Greta Thunberg off, but finally agrees to take care of it. Max meets up.
Fuck you, Dave.
Max meets up with his mates at the bus stop and the chat immediately goes to his hot date. His mate inquires if Max is packing heat and hands Max a condom from his anorak pocket. And Max and the audience vomit in their mouth a little bit at that. Why is this child walking about with a spare condom just to
16.
hand out like it's a bit of drugs or something, or a...
He probably took it from his big brother's bedside table that morning.
If someone was to offer me a condom at a bus stop, I would
Out of an anorak.
I would thank them, but politely decline.
Yes. Thanks. There's a shop right over there. I'll buy my own.
Right.
Because you don't know how long that's been in that anorak.
Exactly.
You know, he does weird things to condoms and other things made out of latex.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming it's a latex one and not like a sheepskin one.
You're assuming that's a leap in the dark, isn't it?
Not really.
They make sheepskin condoms these days.
Yes, they do.
Fuck off, they don't. Anyway, Max is off for a posh wank. Anyway, he turns up at the barber's for his haircut, but David, don't look up sheepskin condoms because it isn't important.
It's important to me.
But David is too busy cutting the hair of an actor in a non-speaking role, so Maria in pink takes care of it. As he's in the chair, Max gets a text from Sonia asking for some saucy pics of Max's Boaby to get her in the mood for their date later, and Max is agog.
Yeah. Trojan even makes natural lamb condoms.
Ask the lamb how natural it is.
$38.71 because some people are allergic to latex.
Yeah, so
And you
I'm
don't want-
guessing that wee boy doesn't have that.
And you don't want your Boaby to break out in hives, do you?
I'm guessing that wee boy hasn't spent $38 on a bit of lamb for his Boaby.
You can get them on Amazon. $15 for 36.
Excellent. Max rushes home after his haircut and then quickly runs up the stairs to take photographs of his genitals, which he then intends to text to Sonia.
This is just a public service announcement for Max and for all boys in general. No girl of any age wants to see that. No girl is going to ask you to send a picture of that. Nobody, they don't care. That's not, I mean, it's important, but it's not important as a picture. Our brains don't work that way.
Whose brains do work that way?
Boys.
And there's a clue to the situation. I just found it really strange that I think we're led to believe that at no point during their friendship together, Max
Right.
and Sonia have spoken to each other about the texts that they've been sending each other.
Right, yeah. He sees her in school. He's not talking to her in school about these texts that they've been sending. He makes this date a number of days in advance. He doesn't confirm with her at the bus stop right then and there about their date coming up.
Seemingly not.
This is so dumb.
So he goes to get her off the bus and the two of them seem to be speaking at cross purposes as Max hints at a surprise that he has planned for her. And at the bistro, Sonia is taken by surprise right enough at the lengths that Max has gone to. Max starts talking about their text messages together, and it's clear that she has no idea what he's talking about, and rather than it being a date, she's just there to discuss a film project that they've been working on together. But I sent you a picture of my bell end, screams Max. But Sonia has only gotten a text from an unknown number claiming to be Max and suggesting this working lunch type thing. Furious, she storms out, leaving Max to worry about just who he sent the picture of his Boaby to.
Right.
The one thing that they did right in this is her rage
And
at this.
Yeah, and
which
freaking
is,
out.
Which is completely justified, right?
Absolutely, yes. But again, they were friends already in real life. Why didn't they? You'd think that they would have exchanged numbers, especially if they're working on projects together.
Yeah, I think it was the start of last week that they began texting flirtatiously to each other.
Right. Yeah.
So we're just to assume that they didn't speak to each other at all, or when they did speak to each other, they never spoke about the text messages.
Right. Yeah. Which does not make sense.
Because if either of those things happened, this storyline doesn't get to happen.
Right. Which maybe would have been a good thing.
Yeah.
For a number of
Outside,
reasons.
Max gets a text from the supposed Sonia, gives a grand or everyone gets to see your scrotum, and Max panics. He rushes home and bites off David's head when he asks how the date went. He meets up with his mates later and explains the situation. His mates first suggest going to the police, but then change their mind as it could lead to Max getting done for being a pedo. Max decides that he has to find the money to pay the bad guys off, not realising the obvious fact here that the bad guys are his supposed friends.
Right.
Back home, Max tells Shona that Sonia isn't who he thought she was. No kidding. Shona suggests a takeaway to cheer everyone up and points him to David's wallet, which is obviously lying out in the kitchen and not in David's pocket.
Right.
So Max calls David's bank
Right.
and tries to move money, but fails when the call handler asks for a security code. Max gets home and David already knows that someone has tried to hack into his bank account. Max acts all shocked and hurt that they would accuse him, but David's having none of it.
Right.
And he threatens to call the cops, which would mean Max going to jail because he's on a suspended sentence.
Right.
Max comes clean. He sent a photo of his genitals to someone he thought was Sonia, and now he's being blackmailed. Oh, and by the way, Sonia's underage. And it seems that David and Shona are fairly relaxed about this until they realise that
Sonia's underage.
right, she's 15.
Yeah, and it's funny that, David's like, well, we could just go to the police, and you could see on Shona's face, no, we can't, because she seems to understand better the fact that sending a nude picture of yourself to another teenager is bad
Right.
on so many levels. Yeah.
You need to pay them off, says Max. Otherwise, everyone he knows could see the pics or the baddies could go to the police themselves.
Right. Yeah. Yes,
So-
you need to pay these people off. I made this huge mistake, and you need to pay for it.
Now you fix it. Right? I've done enough here causing this problem.
This kid-
I'm going to sit over here while you fix it.
This kid just does not learn.
No, and every time you think that he has,
Right. Oh, this will be the thing that will change him into an empathetic, kind person.
it's never going to happen.
No. No. If almost dying isn't going to fix it,
Right. Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
nothing is. Yeah, it seems like the show has forgotten about that too.
Wow, that's another insurance claim on the barbers, wasn't it?
Yeah.
On Wednesday, Shona drags Max to the barber's. He's refusing to go to school until the blackmailers have been paid, but David has no intention of paying and threatens Max with grounding if he doesn't get his arse to school. That was quite a funny scene because Max is like, well, what if I don't go to school? And David sighs, well, I'll take your phone, I'll take your laptop, I'll
Right, yeah.
change the Wi-Fi password. And
Sounded familiar, didn't it?
yeah, too familiar. And as Max turns round and kind of wanders, he's like, yes. There's a kind of realization that, yeah, you control all these things.
Right.
But
Is
then
that when he calls him Dave?
No. But then David checks his online banking and sees that he doesn't have £1,000
Right.
anyway.
Yeah.
At the bus stop, Max is talking to his pals about his predicament. They both seem to think it's funny and they start quoting Max's text to Sonia back to him, and he realises at that point that they're obviously the ones who've been catfishing him. He can't believe that he fell for it, but at least he doesn't have to find £1,000 anymore. Looking on the bright side,
Right.
There's Max for you, right?
Right. Yeah. Oh,
But
you're
his-
my mates. You don't really want money from me. You're not really extorting me.
But his mates still want his money, and now they seriously start bullying him, getting him to go down on all fours and squeal like a pig, like Ned Beatty did in Deliverance.
Yeah.
Max starts to fight back, just as Shona comes round the corner, and as she tries to split them up, Max accidentally elbows her in the nose, giving her more brain damage and a stomach coma.
Right.
Max's pals leave, laughing maniacally, while Shona orders Max to get his arse back home. Now,
Can we really shouldn't be calling them his pals.
no, they're not his pals.
No, they never were.
No.
They're just shitty kids.
Which, remember, we're in the pupil referral unit here. They're
Right,
supposed
yeah.
to be shitty kids.
Right. Yeah.
The fact that he was supposedly, he's found all these pals and he's
Right.
got a girlfriend now.
Right.
She seems a bit too good to be.
Right. I'm wondering what
Pupil
put
referral.
her in this program. Being wealthy, supposedly.
Supposedly, right? Maybe not, because they could be lying.
Although, she does say when she goes to the bus stop that one time, she's like, oh, my dad couldn't take me in. So they have a car, so they have to have some semblance of wealth when it comes to this community.
A semblance of wealth.
A
yes.
semblance of wealth.
David comes home to complain about the events in another storyline and sees the state of Shona's face. Max brings him up to speed and blames David for not paying his friends off. All of this is David's fault, and he seems to think it makes a difference that he intended to send a photo of his genitals to a 15-year-old girl.
He will never learn.
Yeah, I didn't mean to send it to blackmailers. I meant to send it to a 15-year-old girl, for God's sake.
Right. Who supposedly asked for it. A 15-year-old girl is never going to ask for a picture of your junk. Ever.
Unless it is for blackmail purposes.
Yeah. It would have been a lot more interesting if she had been in on it.
Oh yeah, that would have been interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, see how a simple change like that could have just made all the difference. David sends him to his room, but Max calls David Dave and storms out, just like the old Max. And that's as far as we get with that this week. I don't think David works as a Dave.
No.
Dev called David Dave, as I was reminded by Chris Anstey.
Dev called David Dave. That's too many V's in
Far
one
too
sentence.
difficult to say. But, yeah, I just don't think it works.
Yeah.
But it is.
It works better with Dev saying it than Max.
But it's still funny that it's happening given how
Right.
David calls his mum Gail.
Right, yeah. And also, the facial reaction of Jack P. Shepard when he calls him Dave was great.
And Shona's as well. Which,
Well, Shona was kind of laughing behind her hand.
yeah. So this is funny. I don't know.
Well, the Dave part was funny.
Yeah.
But let's remember, the plots are involved in another storyline this week in which bits of it are meant to be funny, and why are we adding comedy to a fairly tragic storyline for the plots.
Yeah. We will get
This
to that
is-
last.
Yes. As it deserves. As this deserves as well. Oh my God. Can we just not with Max anymore? Because, when I first heard the storyline was coming up, I kind of rolled my eyes at it because it's like, oh, here we go. Here we go.
Well, I kind of feel like we've done this
Boy-
already.
boy
with
who-
Asha.
Boy who has constantly done things either directly or indirectly to girls finally gets his comeuppance, and that's what's going to change him and make him realize what he put Summer and Amy through, and he's finally going to realize, and he's finally going to gain empathy. But then we don't even get that. That would have been awful enough that we have yet another storyline where a man learns a lesson off the backs of women's pain and suffering.
Yeah.
But he's not even learned his lesson now. He's still so entitled. And I don't understand what has occurred in this child's life to make him feel so entitled. Because he's not in an entitled family.
He's not had an easy life. He's not had an easy childhood. And maybe
No.
maybe that's it. Maybe it's not an entitlement, but maybe it just has made him just think so poorly of his family and himself because he's not had an easy time of it, because his biological parents are dead,
Right.
and he finds himself under the power of this short-statured hairdresser
Right? Barber.
with a wife whose son,
Killed his mom.
because Clayton killed Kylie.
Right.
So as old Max famously said to
Said to
PC Tinker,
Right.
why wouldn't I be fucked up?
Right.
How is any of this real or natural?
Right.
Or how am I supposed to deal with one aspect of this? Never mind the kind of circular reference that we've got going here with Kylie.
But one would think that because his life has been so fucked up his whole life, that maybe he would have some inborn empathy towards the fuck upness of life for other people. The not being great at school and struggling in school and having a hard time with school, I think fits because it does, because he's grown up in a family where so much is going on all of the time that nobody's really had a chance to really focus on him.
Yeah, and I think the bit that he's good at, because he's not good at the academic side of it, but he
Right.
does seem to have, if Daniel is to be believed,
An artistic
some
bent.
talent, right?
Yeah.
And that fits this kind of profile as well, I think.
Mm-hmm.
You come from that background, and
Mm-hmm.
you're probably going to be maybe better at the creative side of it, the artistic side
Mm-hmm.
of it, than being able to sit down and learn your 18 times table or whatever.
Right, yeah. But again, being artistic and being able to take a lens and create a record of life in an artistic way, one would think would allow oneself to develop a certain amount of empathy for humanity.
Well, yeah, the artistic side is all about putting yourself in other people's shoes, really.
Right. And granted, there is a long list of men in the arts who have been complete and utter shitbags and terrible to women and to other people. And that list just keeps on growing.
Seems to be working then. Right, let's move on to a short one, this one. This is the tail end of the Reinventing Brian thing. This is the thing that always happens when a character leaves.
Right.
You have a little bit the following episode to see them. How are they coping, right?
Right.
So Monday, Evelyn drops into the cabin and learns from Rita that Brian is missing in action after opening up the cabin this morning.
Right. Yes. Not Rita.
No, she hasn't been answering his phone. Evelyn, uncharacteristically perhaps, is concerned for Brian after the events of last week. Her hunt takes her to Roy's, where he remarks that Brian is a sensitive soul and these developments will have hurt him deeply, and this strengthens Evelyn's resolve to find him, concerned that he'll be off to attempt to kick the fuck out of Jim Fizz.
Which would never happen.
No. They finally meet in Roy's Rolls a little bit later, and Evelyn is relieved that he's not dead. Instead, Brian has refreshed his wardrobe for the summer and has bought
has raided Sean's closet from 10 years ago.
Yeah, I was going to say it's a velour shirt. It's not velour, but it's that kind of shiny.
It's like that shiny polyester from the 70s.
It's got "This makes me sweat" written all over it.
Yes, it does.
And it doesn't have a volume button.
No.
He's also been bathing in aftershave, and Evelyn thinks that he smells of a Turkish brothel. Brian doesn't care, and in a high-pitched voice says that he's fine after he's split with Kathy. Evelyn isn't convinced and tells him to sit. She explains that Brian is suddenly trying to reinvent himself, but he's a boring old man just like Roy. But Roy is comfortable in his own skin and apron. It's the inner man that matters, and nothing Brian could look like or smell like
on the
is
outside
going to make the blindest bit of difference.
On the inside.
And that's what happens in that storyline this week.
Yes. So good luck to you, Brian.
It was, yeah, because practically all the way through that, you're thinking, why does Evelyn care about this?
Right.
And then at the end, when she's kind of rude to him, okay, fine, we'll just let it go.
Right. I think it's more she was friends with Kathy, so she feels a responsibility.
Was she even friends with Kathy, though?
She was.
Was she?
Yeah.
Evelyn doesn't really have friends.
She has friends. She has Nina and Roy, and she has Fizz.
Fizz, yeah.
And Yasmin. All the and Toya. All the ladies who go and with their placards and
that one
protest
time years
things.
ago that have never spoken to each other since.
That's
ladies.
Not true. Nina and Evelyn still talk.
Anyway, another short one coming up from Monday. This is Wendy Flamin Crozier.
Papadopoulos.
Nee Papadopoulos. Or maybe the other way around, Nee Crozier. Anyway, on Monday at Wendy's, Abby is very quick to jump to Alfie's demands at the first sound of a whimper, and Wendy tells her to give it a minute. And right enough, Alfie calms down after an hour or two. Abby has forgotten how to raise babies, it seems. And later, Abby catches Wendy making notes, and then she gets a little bit mardy about the person supervising her doing her job. To make it up to her, Wendy suggests that they go out for a cuppa, and Abby suggests swinging by to see Kev on Coronation Street, which makes Wendy uncomfortable, but she eventually agrees. And Wendy's like, look, I'm just making notes here. They're for my benefit more than anything else, just so I can remember things. None of this is really bad. And what do you expect, basically? You're a junkie.
This is par for the course, that notes would be taken. Right. Come on.
Back on Coronation Street, Abby is weirded out a bit by Wendy jogging by the door of number 1. But before she can question her too deeply about it, Kev appears. Hello, stranger. And Abby rushes off to give him a hug and a sponge bath. Actually, though, Kev is looking a good bit better this week.
So this is when he's clean shaven. It's later on that his beard grows back magically.
Oh, it's starting to grow back a little bit. He's got a little bit of stubble. But it does look like he's at least combed his hair maybe a little bit.
Maybe.
Doesn't look quite as smelly.
Oh.
Abby and Kev share a cup and discuss Wendy and her shiftiness. Kev reckons that he's seen her somewhere before, but he can't quite put his finger on it. Speaking of the devil,
like that.
Wendy appears and insists that it's time for Abby and Alfie to leave to their clinic appointment. So Abby and Wendy are just about to head home after their appointment when they have to go by Tracy, who recognises Wendy immediately and calls her a witch, telling Abby that Wendy is a crook and an evil cow. Wendy and Abby rush off as Tracy continues to hurl abuse from outside the florist, which is quite funny.
Yes.
It's good to see Tracy like that every now and again, isn't it?
Yes. You mean like actually being Tracy?
Yeah. Back home, Abby is keen to get the goss from Wendy, but she will only reveal that she and Ken have a history together and things didn't end too well. She assumed it was water under the bridge, but judging by Tracy's reaction, apparently not. Wendy refuses to say any more other than Abby isn't the only one with a few skellingtons in her cupboard. And that's as far as we get with that this week. Mm-hmm. Wendy seemed on Friday to be a more mysterious character. But there, this week, on Monday, she seemed a little bit friendlier, I think. Maybe just a bit friendlier.
Well, she didn't seem unfriendly on Friday. We don't really see enough of her.
Yeah, the instant reaction from seeing her and her expression, though, was that she was going to be a bit of a hard nose.
Really? I didn't get that feeling.
I did.
Maybe it's because you know the whole Wendy thing.
I had to remind myself of it.
Yeah, but you're aware of it, whereas I was not aware of it at all.
Right.
So it didn't mean anything to me when
Yeah.
the camera panned onto her.
The big reveal.
I was like, oh,
It's Mike Myers from and Dr. Evil guys.
sure.
Sure.
Wow.
Anything else about that?
Wow.
So I'm wondering what Wendy is going to do to continue to ruffle the feathers here.
Well, I have a feeling she's eventually going to come clean to Abby exactly why. Because I have a feeling that there are a lot of people who are either A, like you, and have to remind yourself about what Wendy was.
Yeah, because this was back in the 80s.
Right.
Well, the late 80s. 80s.
It was a while ago.
Yeah.
Or B, like me, and have no association with this character at all.
She had an affair with Ken,
Right.
which led to Ken and Deirdre getting divorced.
Right.
So clearly Tracy is still harbouring very negative emotions.
From
about this.
20 years ago.
From how many years ago?
13 years ago. You said late 80s, though.
Yeah, it was 89, 90.
All right.
So it's still not 20 years ago.
Right, yeah. But still, I mean, I don't hate any of my dad's ex-wives or the women that my dad had affairs with.
No, you just hate your dad.
Yeah. Right, yeah. Yeah, you
gotta hate one of them,
you
right?
put the responsibility on the correct person here,
Right.
Tracy.
How would you like to speak about Tim's Boaby again?
Only if it involves donkeys.
It does.
Oh, well, I'm in luck this week then.
On Monday at number 4, ahead of his latest appointment with the doctor, Tim is worried that the latest medication change hasn't worked. Sally recommends going to see what the doc has to say, and if there's nothing that can be done, there's always golf. Or wakeboarding, which surprised me. Tim cuts a sorry figure as he explains the medical change hasn't helped to Dr. Gadas.
Who is looking fabulous these
As
days.
always.
Oh, I like her hair. I mean, I liked the short hair too. But I don't know, there's something about the longer hair that just adds some fabulousness.
There is a potential for fabulous, definitely. So, Tim explains that the medication change hasn't helped. Gadas thinks it's mental. Aye, fucking crazy, innit, says Tim, who's Scottish for some reason now. Gadas thinks a meeting with a sex therapist might help, and Tim's eyes pop out of his baldy head. Tim meets Sally later on Maxine's bench and explains how the appointment went. Sally seems keen on the idea of a sex therapist and suggests that they go private. And later, Sally sets the appointment up for tomorrow, so they must have gone private then. Tim is initially worried about the shame and the cost, mostly the cost, but eventually comes round to the idea. On Wednesday, Sally and Tim are out in public talking about the sex therapist, which gets Tim all het up. She rushes off to get some chocolate fingers for a joke that will be needed in a later scene.
Yes.
There's been a woman collecting for a donkey charity in previous scenes.
Right.
She's spoken to Gary and Maria. We got some chuckles out of that, didn't we?
Right, yeah, because apparently there are two rival donkey sanctuaries in the same town. One on the north side and one on the south side.
Do you want to adopt a donkey? Gary says, you got to be kidding, I live in a flat. So anyway, that woman, she now shows up at number 4, and Tim thinks that she's a sex therapist, so there's lots of miscommunication just for comedy. Tim invites her in for a start, and when she's surprised, he says that he doesn't want to conduct her business on the doorstep. Most people do, she says, and he's fascinated by this. And then she asks how he feels about donkeys. He thinks this is weird and offers her a chocolate finger. And then Sally comes in, pleased to see that a sex therapist has arrived, so the donkey sanctuary woman has to make her excuses and leave.
Right.
That
And
Sally's
Sally's...
donkey woman was in it more than Sally was this week.
Yes, because we later see her trying to rebuild her courage to speaking to strangers about donkeys. The
Right.
Rovers later.
Right. So once the real sex therapist arrives, after Tim has donated to the donkey thing,
Right, yeah.
50 quid.
Because he kind of feels like he has to.
He's obliged, yeah.
It's what Tiny would have wanted.
See, I was a little disappointed that there was no mention of Tiny.
Right.
Because Tim does have a history with
Four-legged animals.
Animals of this nature.
Yes. Beasts of burden.
Right. Well done, Sally. She gets Tim and Sally to look in each other's eyes. Tim finds it too weird, starts laughing, and the sex therapist at this early stage reckons that she's starting too quickly. After the session, the therapist asks them to keep off the nookie for a few weeks, but to explore other ways to be intimate with each other. She leaves, and Tim is furious that this shite advice has cost them money. And later, Tim is trying to avoid the sex therapist and hides in the community garden where Aggie is reading a book. And Tim inadvertently starts complaining about Sally and her wacky ideas, but in doing so, he realises that he doesn't have any better ones, and that maybe he should support her ideas until he has a solution of his own. So he goes and gets Sally flowers and goes home to apologise for his reaction.
Without any real advice from Aggie.
No,
she
she
just wants to read her fucking book.
Right. He apologises for his reaction, but, well, he's British, so, you know. Anyway.
Right, that was really funny, the whole we're British thing.
Yeah, no sex, please, we're British. Anyway, this is the two of them against the problem, not each other. So he's happy to try some of the therapist's suggestions. So Tim and Sally are kneeling on their living room floor and trying to look into each other's eyes again. And this time, they both end up pissing themselves laughing. And Sally goes off to make a brew. And I thought that was quite lovely. Because Sally's laughter seemed utterly genuine.
Yes.
On Friday, in Nina's roles, Tim is trying to do some banter and flattery with Sally, pretending that Sally's beauty is making him blind.
Right.
But no one picks up on what he's doing.
Right, and they all freak out thinking he's having a stroke.
And Roy rubs Tim's face with a damp cloth. They're working on their intimacy, and Tim arranges a lunch date at the bistro. When Sally goes, Aggie comes in, and she seems to be a bit put out by Tim and Sally getting on. And there was a little bit where Sally has written the things that give her joy.
Right.
And she's written a little essay.
Right.
Things That Give Me Joy by Sally Metcalf.
Right.
And it's
old movies.
Cheshire.
Right.
Sally things.
Right.
And Tim's things are Weddy County, Paul Weller, and cheese.
Wasn't there a fourth thing?
No, there's three things. It's comedy, so there's the rule of three.
Gav just said the rule of three while holding up four fingers.
That's comedy for you.
Yes. It's podcast comedy.
Yeah, works brilliantly in the audio medium.
Yes.
So later, Tim and Aggie bump into each other again, and Aggie reveals that she and Ed are having issues too. It seems like they've had a bit of an argument, and Aggie can't get a hold of Ed to sort it out. Tim would love to chat, but he has to hurry off for lunch. So the bistro, Sally has made Tim a cravat at work so she can look like Paul Weller, who's Tim's hero.
So he can look like Paul Weller.
Sally chats to Tim again about the intimacy thing, but Tim is distracted by Ed sitting at the bar. Pissed off, Sally goes off for a shite, allowing Tim to text Aggie saying that he's at the bar, he's in the bistro. Mm-hmm. And at the bar, we learn that the cause of the argument is Aggie wanting Ed to hound Toya for rent. Oof, that was a little bit out of the blue.
Yeah, I didn't even realise that Ed and Aggie owned that flat.
Yeah, of course they do, but it never crossed my mind either.
So, Aggie's kind of in the wrong here.
She's a bit of a cow, yeah. Poor Toya.
Who killed her husband.
Well, poor Toya.
Who killed her husband.
Back from her shite, Sally's talking about Dr. Zhivago, but Tim is still texting Aggie because Ed's leaving now. Sally is apoplectic with rage and storms off in a huff. And at home, Sally's still pissed, and Tim explaining that he's worried about Aggie and Ed doesn't help matters, and she goes back off to work. She took a half day off for this as well. A morose Sally's in the community garden and tells Steve about how she thinks that Tim has finally lost interest in her, blaming the age difference between the two of them. Steve insists that Tim adores her, but Sally thinks adored, past tense. Steve points out that Tim never joins in with the anti-wife banter. So that proves that he still loves her.
Well, let's see. Who's Steve having anti-wife banter with then?
Just Tim and Eileen.
Because his best mates are Tim, who loves his wife, and Dev, who has no wife. So, and Eileen, who has no wife. So who is it? Just him complaining about?
I think that's what we're meant to imply.
Tracy all the time?
Or infer from that, yeah.
Weird.
Next, Steve meets up with Tim and the Rovers, and as Tim is about to quiz him on whether he's spoken to Sally or not, Sally appears, now keen to finish off talking about Dr. Zhivago. And this time, Tim pays attention and is even able to explain what Sally was talking about. They go home to eat cheese, listen to Paul Weller, and watch Weddy County. And that's as far as we get with that this week.
Not Weddy County live, though.
No.
Like a taped
He's taped the cup final or a cup match or something like that.
from like 5 years ago.
And he was very excited about the prospect of watching it again. Have you ever watched sport for a second time? Like you watch sport live and you think, I'm going to watch that again. I don't think I've ever done that.
Only in clips.
Right,
you
never-
know, like when you're watching like a documentary and, and it comes up. Or like there have been some really exciting moments in sport within my lifetime. And sometimes, there'll be a clip of like just the exciting bit of the match or the game on YouTube. And you watch that and you get that
clip.
And you get that feeling that you got from when you watched it the first time.
You watch the whole thing. Though.
Yeah, but you don't watch the whole game.
Not
no.
the whole 3-hour baseball game.
No. I don't think, I often think about when the Red Sox won the World Series for the first time since 1918. I often think about it, but I often think about it from like our reaction at home more than anything. And I sometimes think about the Cubs winning the World Series after an even longer time. But when I think about that, I kind of just think about Bob Newhart and Bill Murray.
I think about Bill Murray,
and their reactions and everything, and how happy those two old white men are.
Because I was in Chicago when that happened.
Right.
And I remember watching it on TV in my hotel room.
Uh-huh.
Well, I watched bits of it because baseball is really boring.
Oh, fuck you. You
It
watch
is.
darts.
Darts is great, though. Baseball is really boring, for the most part. There's very brief moments of excitement. At any given time in a baseball park, I would say maybe 10% of the people there are actually watching it. And everyone else is just talking, going to get hot dogs and just wandering around. That's how exciting it is. But the last inning, I've watched that again. I've watched the last inning.
Right.
But anyway.
Yeah, but not the whole thing.
No, not the whole thing. Not the whole 4 hours of it.
No.
Because I
No.
know how it ends.
Or like all 7 games.
Oh, jeez, no. But this is Tim we're talking about.
This is Tim we're talking
I
about.
know. I think the inclusion of the sex therapist has, at least they're not arguing with each other
Right.
too much
Yes.
anymore, and at least they both seem to be on the same page, which I
Right.
guess is
And it seems like they're being proactive.
yeah,
And
they're
it's
getting
not
somewhere.
right. And it's, I think, a learning experience for them and for the audience, as opposed to ha ha ha, isn't it funny Tim can't get it up?
Yeah, Timpotence.
Yeah.
Let's laugh at Timpotence.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It seems to be, hopefully, getting to some sort of conclusion. Our next storyline this morning is recycling Maria's rubbish ideas. On Wednesday, walking to work, Maria gets a call from the council to let her know that they've approved of her idea to increase the number of recycling pickups or something. There's more glass that's getting picked up or
Right.
something like that.
They're adding another bin specifically and just for glass, which is a good idea. I kind of wish that we had separate bins for everything instead of just chucking everything into one. Although in the UK, don't they already have like 4 or 5 different bins
They
for
have
things?
a million different bins, and that, I think, is what Kirk and Beth's problem are about it later on, is they've just got far too many bins, because you've got
You'd think that they'd already have one for glass.
you have your garbage,
Right.
you have your recycling, you
Right.
have your, you probably do have your glass now, you have your
Right,
garden
paper.
refuse and your paper.
Right. I wish we had garden refuse. I mean, we have our own composting unit in the backyard, but
It's not great at getting rid of branches from trees, though.
no, because it's small. We can load up our branches and take them to the place where
Yeah,
they
but have to put them in the car, though.
right,
That's
and
why
then
we need a
drive
truck.
them and then unload them.
So,
Anyway,
at the Rovers, Gary's there to celebrate with Maria, but she's had another call to let her know that the recycling guys are going on strike thanks to her initiative, because this is going to be more work for them.
which is just so fucking stupid and would never happen in real life. Oh no, one more bin. Oh no, we're going to get, it's going to take us longer, so we'll get paid more. No.
No, but they probably won't get paid more. They'll probably get paid the same. That's what they want. They want paid more for this bin.
Right. But if they're on an hourly wage and it takes them longer, then they will get paid more.
Yeah, but that's not how these things work usually. It's like do more in less time.
One would hope
There
that
we go.
before approving this, that all of this stuff would have been talked out first.
Oh, but the council have already approved it.
Right, yeah. Yeah,
This idea that we didn't know Maria had.
right. Yeah. And again, in real life, all of the aspects of this would have been talked out first. And
Everyone
not just, okay.
Everyone at the Rover seems to hate Maria's idea, and now they hate Maria because now the bin men are on strike too. They've come out in sympathy. Gary gets home and
This
Maria's
is-
stressed out of her tits
This whole
about
storyline is so dumb.
Audrey from another storyline, but mostly this strike thing. But rather than burying her head in the sand, she takes ownership. This is her problem, and she'll have to sort it out herself.
Yeah, which is nice.
My wife, says Gary. On Friday, in the Rose Gold flat, Maria,
How long have you been wanting to do a Borat impersonation on this podcast?
since I wrote the line, my wife, says Gary. In the Rose Gold flat, Maria, it was also an Adam Buxton impression. In the Rose Gold flat, Maria has arranged a meeting with the head bin man to convince him that the extra glass bin thing is a great idea.
Is it the head bin man or is it the union representative for the bin man?
Either or. In Nina's Rose, whichever one works best for you.
Yeah.
In Nina's Rose, Maria thinks that Rosa Parks was a dinner lady at Wednesday High. But Roy
Maria's dumb. So funny. Ha ha.
But Roy sets her right,
Ah.
explaining not to give in, just like the Rosa Parks that he was talking about.
Yeah.
In comes
And gets the story wrong, but that's all right.
in comes the head bin man, Jimmy, and because he's working class, this means that he's also a sexist.
Right. He's a working class dude, so he don't
You don't speak to no ladies.
you don't speak to no little ladies. Where's your boss, little lady?
Jimmy isn't convinced
God.
about Maria's environmental plea, so Maria has to promise to try and get them a pay rise.
Right, because he's working class, so obviously he doesn't believe in climate change because he's working class.
Yeah, and the fact that Maria is so quick to offer a pay rise, that isn't going to come back to bite her on the arse at all. Roy no longer thinks that Maria is Rosa Parks. Outside the barber's, a man with a camera and a microphone approaches Maria and quizzes her about the environmental stance that she's got going. Thinking that this is a news interview, Maria is happy to give her answers. Back at the Rose Gold flat, Kelly says that Maria's interview is all over the socials, but when they watch it, it's been carefully edited by a talented soul, so it looks like Maria is saying that Daniel Osborne is a fanny.
Max has done the editing.
Gary is impressed. Maria less so.
Why is Gary impressed by this? One would think that Gary would be indignant for his wife.
He's impressed at how it's been put together. He's looking at it from a technical point of view.
Sure.
Oh,
All that careful time redeeming Gary just to shit it out by him.
he's been supportive in the past.
I know, he was supportive earlier in the episode. But then he thinks it's hilarious that this has been done to his wife.
Yep. For this, it says that she deserves to be in a waste disposal unit or something like that. It's not really that funny.
No.
It's no cassette boy, put it that way.
Yeah. And then there's like her laughing, but it's not her laughing. That part of the video wasn't very good because it was obviously not Maria's laugh.
Right.
And it's just, I don't know. Apparently this is going to get worse before it gets better. So hang on to your hats for more women suffering at the hands of men in a way that involves technology and women's bodies.
That's what gets me tuned in
Yay!
3 times a week. I
Oh my
watched this
God.
shit twice. Just think about that.
What was I watching? What was I watching while you were watching it twice? Oh, I was rewatching the Doctor Who episode with Nick Frost as Santa Claus. That was nice. It was nice to rewatch that.
Oof. I'm happy about one thing about this, which is that when Maria got elected, she was kind of a one issue stance that she was taking about
Right.
the pollution
And the environment, yeah.
and doing something about the car parking situation on the
Right.
street.
For the kids.
Right. I thought they'd either get her to do that and then she'd leave, or maybe she'd be so bad at being a counsellor that she'd just resign almost straight away. The fact that the bit that I really liked on Wednesday was when she's, if you're dropped into a situation like that and you've got this sudden problem and you realise that you've inadvertently made things worse through your, either your inexperience in the role or a little bit of naivety or a little bit of both.
Or
But
because at the council meeting where you brought this up, not one person said, well, we should really consult with the guys who do
Sure,
the actual
right.
recycling.
She's not the person that approved this. She's just the person that had the idea. Other
Right.
people have approved
Yes.
it. So it's
Yeah.
kind of more their fault than it is
Right.
her fault.
This is why we have a council and
Right.
not just one council person.
But she resolved to fix it.
Right, yeah. She took the initiative.
Yeah, and I like that. It's like,
Yeah.
right, let's see Maria pushing herself in this field. Let's see her be super successful at
Right.
it. Wouldn't that be good?
Right. No, but instead we have to remind you that Maria is dumb because she doesn't know who Rosa Parks is.
Well, she does, but that's not the first person that she thinks of when she hears the name Rosa Parks. The first person she thinks of is the Where They Hide Dinner Lady or whoever.
Right.
Which is
Yeah,
arguably even worse than not knowing who.
Again, this is only done because Maria is dumb.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's remind the audience that Maria is dumb. She's done all of this great stuff. She's really redeemed herself. We're seeing her slowly, find her place in a position of power. But we can't let her, look too successful. We have to knock her down a bit by reminding you
It
that
does
she's
feel
dumb.
like there's a bit of that going on.
Yeah.
And I'm not here for that.
I'm not here for it either.
These things always seem
Especially
to happen
this week.
on class. Right. Welcome to the 70s again. The classic where Maria is just starting to go out with Tyrone and they're getting engaged and stuff, and the two of them are so sweet together. It just makes you want more for Maria now. Remembering all that sort of stuff. You just they pushed her down a road of being, man mad and jumping from one bed to the next for
Right.
the longest time,
Right.
and being the one that she's the one that's going to break up relationships and she's the one that's going to ruin marriages and stuff.
Never a good look.
And she doesn't seem to be that person anymore.
No, she's happily married to Gary, of all people,
Yeah, but
in the Rose Gold flat.
the dumb. Let's make her super successful. There aren't many
Right.
super successful people at anything really in the show, male or female.
Right.
Debbie maybe, but she got her stuff through ill-gotten gains, didn't she?
Right.
By blackmailing and threatening, and so
Carla.
Carla, yeah,
We will always have Carla.
she's trying to teach Sarah. Sarah's not really as good at it.
No.
Oh well,
She's getting there, though.
yeah. She hasn't fucked up in a while.
No.
Our next storyline is Game of Thornes. Wiener, 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 wiener. On Wednesday, Peter, who doesn't work at the factory, is at the factory explaining to Carla that he accidentally defrosted the freezer. That's a great reason to be at the factory. Flooding the kitchen, and now they're going to need new flooring. But worry not, because once his settlement from Thorne has come through, he'll be able to pay for the new flooring, get it installed, rip it up, and then put down better new flooring. That's how much money he's going to tear from that bastard Thorne. Thorne plans to move to Philadelphia to take up his new job, but for tax purposes, he's going to keep up a UK residence inside Peter's head.
Bravo.
Thank you. Later, Peter still doesn't work at the factory when he comes into the factory with Carla's lunch and ends up
Philadelphia.
speaking to Adam, who also doesn't work at the factory. And while these two people who don't work at the factory are in the factory, they talk about the Thorne case and the progress of it. And Adam asks Peter to come round later to discuss.
And Sarah is keen to discuss flooring
Yeah.
with Carla.
But don't come to the factory to discuss this.
No.
Come at my office instead.
Right.
Later,
Or my house.
Peter and Carla go off to Sarah and Adam's. Carla's nose is put out of joint because Sarah will go on about her decor and how Harry's artwork is all over the place, in more ways than one. Adam's news for Peter, though, is that there's not enough evidence, and what evidence there is hearsay, so he doesn't really have a case against Thorne after all. Well, who's going to pay for my fucking flooring?
I don't understand how that picture is hearsay. That picture he took of himself with
Well, whose liver is it?
Peter's
Is
liver.
it Peter's liver?
It
Do you
doesn't-
have proof that it's Peter's liver?
It doesn't really matter whose liver it is. You don't take a selfie with a liver.
Do you have proof that it's not a calf's liver?
Yeah, because a cow's liver would be smaller.
Do you have proof that it's not a cow's liver?
Yes, because a cow's liver would be larger.
Do you not have evidence that it's a cow in between a calf and a cow whose liver is exactly the same size as a human liver?
No, because I'm sure that there are differences. I'm sure. They can't possibly be exactly the same.
And also, well,
But-
I don't think it's really the photo. I think it's the betting thing that is. There's no evidence that any betting came on other than the fact that Evelyn overheard something, which is essentially what hearsay
Who?
is. Evelyn Aggie. Evelyn has nothing to do with any of this. So,
No,
so
not
really,
yet.
so really, we really can discount Evelyn's opinion from anything to do with this. So, Carla thinks that he should let it go, but Peter gets on the phone to his whistleblowing nurse pal, but she also has no interest in helping any further. On Friday, in Nina's roles, Peter is still going on about Thorne and his settlement. That man is so arrogant. Ken is old and bored and wishes that Peter would drop it. Carla is
And
younger
it's also arrogant.
and bored and wants him to drop it too. But Peter thinks that Simon could do a social media pile-on and storms off to meet the Platts in a different storyline.
What does Peter think social media is? It's like, I'm going to get Simon to do something on that social media. What? That's something you would think Ken would say.
Right.
Not Peter, who is younger and maybe knows something.
At least a bit more savvy, right? But 20 years ago, Ken was sitting in Roy's Rolls on a laptop the size of this room, typing his novel. Ken and Simon are going through some of Ken's old newspaper clippings, all so that Ken can find his old dictaphone. In comes Peter, and Ken and Simon both advise Peter to just fucking drop it with the Thorne chat, but Peter is determined to get a confession out with the man who saved his life. In the community garden, Peter...
There's also a discussion about how Peter wanted to have a bar and Ken didn't want him to, and that made the papers.
That was the bistro. That ended up being the bistro.
It made the papers. Did Ken write that article himself?
Old man shouts at son.
How long have you been keeping that in your pocket?
So, the actual article, the actual newspaper,
Right.
Michael Adams, who worked on the show, has it and has it signed by
And framed.
right, and it's great.
Yeah.
But it's close. The picture's big enough that you can read what the article says. Somebody had to sit and write that article because people like me would
Years in the future.
zoom in on it and read it.
Right. Because 20 years ago, you wouldn't have the technology to do that
Right. So,
unless you burned it on a DVD.
in the community garden, Peter meets up with Thorne, who is only there out of a mild interest to see what pish Peter is going to spout about an offer next. Thorne knows that there is no case against him and knows that Peter doesn't have any bargaining chips, but when he arrived, Peter was looking kind of shifty when Thorne came round the corner and was fumbling about with his phone. Peter wants an apology for what he did, but Thorne knows that Peter is recording the conversation on his phone, which he obviously is. Peter says Thorne deserves to be punished for what he did. Thorne says that he got a taste for the gambling now, and he even calls it Game of Thorns, to which Peter reveals that he was recording the conversation on the dictaphone too. Double whammy.
Right. And he seems to think that gambling is a widespread problem in the United States, that you could just gamble anywhere in this country, where there's like 4 states where it's legal to gamble.
Oh, well, it's more now.
But still.
But it used to be, I used to like, I think I've said this before, I used to like putting on a coupon on a Saturday morning and put a bet on the games
Right.
that I was going to watch. And you can't do that here, or you couldn't do that here.
No.
You can do it now.
Well, you can do it now here, but there's still lots of states where it's still illegal.
Right. And the funny thing is that now I can do it, I don't really do it.
Right.
Thorne offers $5,000 to get the tape back. $5,000? Did I say $5,000? $10,000. Peter reckons that's an hour's worth of work in the States, and he's taken the tape to the authorities. Thorne shouts $100,000 at Peter as Peter storms off. "What have you done?" asks Carla, who appears out of nowhere. "One," says Peter. That's quite a nice shot as Peter was walking away there.
Yeah.
But this is ridiculous.
Do you think this is over?
Probably not. Because now Thorne, who has threatened some kind of retribution if Peter was to act in this way, is probably now going to be spurred into doing that. So what's Thorne's retaliation going to be? If he's getting paid 10 grand an hour,
$10,000 an hour.
well, that's what Peter thinks he's getting paid in the States. That's an hour's worth of work. What can you buy with that 10 grand? How many hitmen or people called Titch can you employ to kick fuck out of an old drunken sailor early in the morning?
Ooh. What if he hires Gay Mick to do it? Wouldn't that be great?
Nah.
We get to see Gay Mick again.
I don't want to see Gay Mick in this storyline. He has no business being in this storyline.
Well, he's a hitman, isn't he?
No, he was a thug. He was just in fact, he was like a head honcho thug.
Right. So he gets paid to beat the shit out of people.
No, he gets paid to get people. He gets paid to pay people to beat shit out
No,
of people.
I
Gay
suppose.
Mick doesn't do any of that.
Right.
Gay Mick doesn't get his hands dirty.
No.
It's Gay Mick.
He's got a husband and a child now.
Yeah, and wonderful fingernails.
We miss you, Gay Mick. Come back.
Really do.
Bring Fish Guy with you.
Yeah.
Is that... I haven't watched it yet, but I have a movie to watch that involves a fishmonger. Or there's a fishmonger on the cover, and he's wearing the same hat as Fish Guy.
Yeah.
Is that just like regulation standard
Standard
uniform
fare,
for
a fishmonger.
fish guy?
Yeah. If you see somebody walking down the street wearing that, you go, "There's a fishmonger." Maybe a butcher, but probably a fishmonger.
Isn't a butcher more like circular instead of
No, that's
pointy?
a chef that you're thinking of.
No, those are poofy. Again,
You're thinking
doing
of-
hand motions
You're
that...
thinking of a policeman. That's what you're thinking of. Yeah, I don't know. I was kind of happy that Peter wasn't getting satisfaction here.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't a big deal for me, but the fact that it was so on his tits all the time, I was quite enjoying that.
Yeah.
And for his arrogance, I kind of liked Thorne. I liked how Thorne just didn't give a fuck. Did not have a solitary fuck to give.
Not one.
I kind of liked that.
I didn't. I thought he was a dick.
Oh, he's a dick,
Tough
absolutely.
phone.
Oh, absolutely a dick. But yeah, I thought it kind of worked.
And I've dealt with doctors like that who are all smarmy and think that they're God. Mm-hmm. So,
But he at least wasn't even pretending not to be that.
no, it's true.
He did his job well, apparently. Oh well, our penultimate storyline is Bully for Sean. Just a few scenes about this on Friday. Eileen's cupboard door is ready to drop off. Frank offers to look at it, but Sean is keen to leave, so the two of them can be deplorable together somewhere else. Sean notices that George hasn't been around lately. Isn't that interesting? But hasn't worked out why. When they leave, George comes bounding down the stairs from doing a shite or something, and Eileen is unhappy that George seems to be happy to continue this charade of hiding from
Right.
Frank and Sean.
Yes, because he's acting like he's still 12
Correct.
and not a grown-ass man.
Right. And then there's Rose. Todd gets George to check on an order of service for him, and George nips off to do that, which allows Eileen to explain to Todd about George and Frank, asking him to try and sway George to a more sensible position of being able to put the past behind him. Todd is agreeable but wants more detail. And Eileen, I think, is more than happy to give it.
Yes.
So back home, Todd has fixed the cupboard door and given George credit. And George is like, "Well, if that's what you're doing for me, I can't wait to hear what you want to speak to me about." And Todd says that he has some ideas on how to deal with Frank if he really is a bully. George insists that he is. And Todd's idea is to catch him in the act. "How do we do that?" says George. "You leave that to me," says Todd. Exactly like that.
Yeah. How is this going to work? Because I don't think he really is a bully
No,
anymore.
he's not like he is.
He's just like an adult man people who bullied me in school are not bullies anymore. In fact, a lot of them, and this would be really interesting if this occurred. I was just thinking about this morning before we started recording. A friend of mine was relentlessly bullied by this other girl, like relentlessly bullied. And it was kind of tough because I was kind of friends with both of them. And it turns out in later years, the bully came out and admitted that an awful lot of the bullying she did was specifically towards girls that she was attracted to, and she hated them for the feelings that she hated in herself,
Right.
and was projecting onto them.
Yep.
And I'm wondering if that's what's happened here. It would be interesting if that's what's happened here, since we know that, what's his name?
Frank,
We know Frank is gay.
we have some clues.
Yes. He is dating Sean after all.
Clue number 1.
So it would be what would be really nice and interesting is if, Frank and George, two responsible, grown-up adult men, were able to sit together and for Frank to come to some sort of realization that it was because he was a closeted young man
Right.
who had feelings for George. And that's what made him bully him, because he hated the homosexuality in himself. That would be an interesting storyline. That would be a thoughtful storyline. That
Yep.
would be opening up both of these characters and the show to aspects of what the homosexual community went through in the 70s and 80s. And yeah, the 70s and 80s. These are not young men. And how things are slightly different now. And, and also aspects of bullying and how bullies aren't born bullies, and everything. That would be really interesting. Instead, it seems like we're going to get another one of Todd's weird. He's going to hire that kid again, isn't he?
Will. Yeah. I'm not entirely against that. Mm-hmm. Because something has to happen to get to the part that you're talking about.
Right.
And so long as there is something on the end of it,
Mm-hmm.
I kind of miss old scheming Todd, scheming for more, I don't know, they're not really wholesome reasons, but they're better reasons than they were before.
Right. It's not for
To help
himself, it's for
right?
someone else. Right.
I think I can live with that.
Which he kind of did to get his mum and George together in the first place.
Right. Yeah, I'm here for that, and I'm here for that. If that's how the storyline goes, yeah, I think that would be an interesting way to examine this and get some closure for the pair of them.
Yes, writers, get on it.
Because I don't think Frank is a bully now,
No.
as you've said, and I don't think Frank is the sort of character that you just want in it for
Right.
like half a dozen episodes.
Right.
While there has to be a better purpose for him, I
Right.
think, or it seems that there's a better purpose for him, and having him in longer term would probably be an acceptable route to go down.
Right.
But to do that, we have to get some closure on this, and that seems like as good a way as any to make him
Right.
a decent character, because he seems like a decent guy.
Right. Yeah. The only thing that we have as evidence that maybe that's not the case is just him humming a song.
Right.
And humming a song when
Which was absent-mindedly, right? It
right,
was-
yeah. He didn't even think George was around him at the time to
Right.
hear. It was just kind of
Yeah, all of
muscle
this is
memory.
all of this is in George's head.
right.
To some degree, right?
Right, yeah. And I'm not trying to negate George's feelings in all of this because, as I said, I was bullied quite relentlessly as a child. So I get that you still have that affects the adult that you become.
Yeah, and you still want closure for it.
Right. Yeah. But this is not the way.
Right. Our final storyline this morning is Tim's mum about the house.
It kind of has to be, doesn't it? She shows up.
Those are the rules that we've applied to ourselves.
Inexplicably, she shows up. She doesn't live there anymore. Why is she there?
maybe she has a little ha-hee-haw with another character who just shows up there. That's what I'm going with.
Yeah, I was thinking that's where they're headed.
Well, we'll get
and
there.
I'm not happy about it.
Because
I
you want her
still
to be a
want
lesbian.
Right, yeah, I still want her to hook
Anyway.
up with Yasmin, but never mind.
On Monday, Gail is arguing with Shona about throwing out the cursed elephant. Gail insisted it stays, although Shona claims it's to blame for Audrey's recent turns, and this reminds Gail, and she ropes Shona into babysitting the old deer, but Shona has conditions.
Which is weird because elephants are generally thought of to be lucky.
Well, it's Bernie's idea.
Right.
Fuck does Bernie know about anything?
Well, remember she's a hippie.
Yeah, but is she good at it?
No.
No, there you go then. So Gail goes to throw the elephant out, but Maria in pink stops her because it should be in the recycling. Gail isn't interested. If you care about it so much, you can deal with it, and she hands it off. So Shona is babysitting Audrey at number 8 when she gets a call from the school about Lily missing a permission slip or something. Shona is about to run off with it when she remembers that Audrey is incapable of looking after herself, and Audrey catches wind of this and is not amused, insisting that Shona takes care of her business and she'll be just fine. So Shona leaves, and she hasn't been gone for more than 5 seconds when Audrey gets up, ready to hit the pub. Gail gets home to find that Shona has taken her eyes off of Audrey and she's escaped. No guesses where to, says Gail, and Shona poo-poos it, insisting that Audrey can look after herself. So Gail tracks Audrey down to the Rovers and demands that she stops drinking. The two of them struggle with a bottle of vino, which obviously ends up all over Gail's face.
And her 10% cashmere sweater.
Drinks are on you, says Audrey.
Ha ha ha.
And there's a comedy. Noise. Gail accuses Audrey of doing that deliberately and calls Audrey childish. So Audrey picks her nose and wipes it on Gail's 10% cashmere sweater. Gail goes home, furious. Rita hears about the incident with the Merlot and turns up at the Rovers to make matters worse. To keep Audrey company, and suggests that the two of them can get mullered together. And the two of them chat, Audrey admitting that she hates getting old, and Rita suggesting that they grow old disgracefully together. Grow old? Says everyone. Aren't you already old? Yes, grow old. Daisy catches wind of this and sets the two of them up with tequila slammers, Jaeger bombs and aftershocks. Pished, Audrey and Rita stagger out home.
Because Daisy is trying to kill them
Back home,
and take their money.
Back home, Audrey has a word with Gail, telling her that she's decided to move back to Grasmere Drive in a few days. She's fucking sick of being treated like a baby here. Gail doesn't think that she's ready. Audrey says this is a problem. Audrey is the boss of Audrey, not Gail, and you can stick your house up your arse.
Right. Up your arse.
On Wednesday, Audrey is banging on the Rover's door demanding to get in. Daisy opens up 2 minutes late, which is 2 minutes of drinking time that Audrey's never going to get back. Rita joins Audrey in the Rovers again, and Audrey is already half sloshed on G&T. Rita is nursing a hangover and is working at the cabin, so she's on the fruit juice. Audrey complains about being treated like a child at Gail's, so Rita tells her to go back to work if she's looking for something to occupy her. She owns the barbers after all. Fuck 'em, says Rita.
Which is what we said, but not like this.
Right. So, Audrey obviously interprets this as, go do that right now.
Right, and go work at the barber's cutting hair again.
Later at the barber's, David is shocked to see the Thai elephant is on the counter, and then further shocked to see Audrey come in, and then further shocked again when she announces that she's come back to work. She hangs her coat on David's head, and then drunkenly goes to work.
Right. Telling a man that he's got to look good for his girlfriend or future girlfriend.
Yep.
And never once considering that perhaps he has a boyfriend.
She does call him Lovey, though. So,
Yeah.
6 and 2/3. But David smells booze in her, reckons that she's a hazard to the customers, and assigns her to the counter and the phone. She's not cutting anyone's hair, apart from that bloke's hair that she's already cut.
Right.
Then Ryan is in for a haircut. Ryan's back.
Ryan's back.
And Audrey, who is now on the vino, gives him a beer, while David gives him a trim, and Audrey backseat hairdresses.
And Ryan is there because Audrey mentioned Ryan to Daisy, because for some reason Audrey thinks Daisy is still dating Ryan, even though that stopped like 6 months ago.
And later, Audrey's trying to get her hole off of Ryan. If I was 20 years younger, yeah, you'd be in your 60s.
20? 20, Audrey?
If I was 50 years younger? Ryan takes it in good heart.
Right, yeah. He's very sweet with old ladies.
Yep.
We know this about Ryan.
David intervenes and tries to send Audrey home. She's having none of it though, but as she wanders away from him, she trips over Gail's bronze elephant that's on the floor for some reason and goes,
Right.
arse over tit.
I've fallen, and I can't get up.
We're sending help immediately, Mrs. Fletcher.
Is this going to make you think that you need to delete something?
Yeah, just lighten upon magic here. Every time I hit that button, that's normally a note for me later in post-production to cut something out.
So hopefully you won't cut all this out.
Right. Or maybe I will cut it out. Maybe no one will notice. Audrey may have gone arse over tit, but she doesn't think she needs A&E.
No, even though she's an elderly woman.
Maybe concussed.
Right.
Did she hit her head?
And let's not forget, the last old person who got knocked down by something and
Thanks,
landed on
Kathy.
their head died. Rest in peace. Dead Ted 2.
But she blames David and Kelly for leaving the ornament on the floor. She reminds everyone that she's the boss, and she fires Kelly. And when David protests, saying, "Who do you think you are, Alan Sugar?" she fires him too. When Maria gets into work, Audrey's playing foosball with Ryan and listening to dance music. And when Maria asks for it all to be dialed back a bit because she's got clients coming in, Audrey fires Maria as well. Back at number 8, David is explaining Audrey's behaviour to Gail when Maria comes in to give her side to add weight. Audrey's like a mum to me, says Maria, but you've got to do something about this. So Gail goes to the barber's to find Audrey singing Misty to herself. Audrey's in no mood for lectures and promises to speak to David and Maria tomorrow once everything's calmed down, and she'll sort it out. Audrey and Gail manage to talk somewhat about Audrey's hatred of growing old and being irrelevant and out of control in her life. And it's going well until she goes for a top-up and Gail loses her patience, telling her mum that she's been drinking all day and needs to go home. She's drinking herself to death. Audrey loses her shit and accuses Gail and the family of counting the days until they can get their sweaty hands on her money. And she sends Gail packing, informing her that she'll be going back to Grassmere Drive tonight.
Wait.
Gail is really upset by this.
Right, as she should be, because that's not what's going on at all. In fact, she's desperately trying to keep her mum alive.
Right.
Not the other way around.
In the Rovers, an upset Gail explains how hurtful Audrey's comments were, and she says this to David and Sarah. Sarah suggests speaking to Peter. Maybe David could investigate if there are any support groups for alky grannies, what with him being out of work now. Speaking to Shona later, he refuses to go into work tomorrow, opting for waiting for Audrey to come and apologise to him. Back in the barber's, Audrey is ready to lock up and get herself a taxi when she sees Vin Weasel, gets a fright, falls into the motorbike, which falls on top of her as she takes another spill.
I've fallen, and I can't get up.
We're sending help immediately, Mrs. Fletcher.
Pished and pinned down by a heavy motorbike, Audrey politely calls for help, but there's none coming. On Friday, Gail is leaving a message on Audrey's machine. She's shitting nails with worry and begs for a call back. Meanwhile, David is still peeved about being sacked yesterday and thinks that Audrey has gone feral. Audrey, though, is still trapped under that bike.
Which begs the question, why do they have a motorbike?
Yeah, I've seen that before, though. I've seen that before in barbers.
I've seen it, like, suspended
Oh, God, no.
from the ceiling
God, no.
or, like, embedded in the wall. But loose like that?
I think
And not bolted down to the floor?
Oh, the one that I'm thinking of was maybe bolted to the floor, but I've been in a barber's that had an inexplicable motorbike in it.
Right.
Because the guy that owns it likes his motorbikes.
Right.
Which is neither David nor Maria
nor
Audrey.
Nor Nick. Because let's remember, Nick was involved in the decor of that barbershop.
Because he didn't want the weasel.
Right.
Or Vin Weasel. It's Platt family meeting time in public at Speed Dial. Peter wanders in from another storyline to talk to him about alcoholism. David wants to scare Audrey into sobriety by taking her under the bridge and showing her all the meth addicts. Peter urges caution and taking things gently, and that appears to be the sum total of his advice. And then Tim's mum's back. She finds Brian chapping the door of the locked barber's and insults his enormous head for about 5 minutes. He's looking for another trim because the last hairdresser fucked up his crown or whatever, and then they hear Audrey crying for help inside.
Yeah, but let's not forget, Brian was just in Trim Up North.
Getting his eyebrows done, though. He was just getting his eyebrows done.
That's true, that was just his eyebrows. But still, he was just there.
Brian runs off for help, and then a man with a Canadian accent arrives. Here's what's going on.
Ohio.
And Ohio. And kicks the door in, eh? The Canadian man is Canadian Stephen, Audrey's son. Audrey comes round as Tim's mum does her best to explain the situation to 999 without them hanging up on her. No, it's an old lady, and she was in the barber's, and a motorbike fell on top of her.
And she was there all night.
No, really. Back at speed dial, an intervention should be the last resort, says Peter, who doesn't seem to have anything else to say. Nick volunteers to speak with Audrey about what her drinking is doing to the family, and then Brian comes running in and explains that someone is locked in the barber shouting for help. And very, very slowly, the Platts kind of sigh, stand up, and go and put their jackets on. No one's really rushing to assistance here.
No. Nor should they. She treats them like shit.
Outside the barbers, the Platts are shocked to see Stephen, who wastes no time in blaming them for Audrey's condition. And she's taken off to hospital with Stephen riding along. David advises Gail not to let Stephen welch his way in like a Canadian on this.
Right, because you know how those Canadians are.
Right.
He might be overly polite to someone and make you look bad
So
by apologizing too much.
So I posted on Twitter that Stephen had been back for half an hour and he hadn't said a boot or apologised for anything, and he calls himself Canadian.
Right.
And Christy P responded with, "I'm sorry, but I'm outraged." Which made me laugh quite a
Right,
bit.
yes. And he hasn't even ordered any poutine.
Poutine.
Poutine. I can never eat that again.
Later, don't worry, I've got it for you. Later, they meet at at the hospital waiting room. Stephen reveals that Sarah had called him saying that Audrey was drinking herself to death. I was going to say Audrey was drinking herself into an early grave. It's not quite that. And Gail was just making things worse. Gail doesn't believe Sarah would do that to her, but the evidence was trapped under her bike all night, like a barbershop Evel Knievel, says Stephen. Audrey, meanwhile, is off for a scan. Gail offers to take Stephen...
I'm sorry, but were they supposed to have an eye on her all the time? They've been desperately trying to call her. She shoved all of them out of that barber's and then said she was going to go home to her house.
Gail wanted to keep an eye on her all
Right.
the time, and she
Yeah.
wasn't allowed to do it.
Right.
That's part of the problem.
It's so unfair. Poor Gail.
Gail offers to take Stephen straight back to the airport, insisting that they take good care of Audrey, thanks very much. Stephen accuses Gail of spending half her time in Thailand. She accuses him of spending all his time in Canada. Boom!
Burn.
Sarah
It's a good thing they're in the hospital so they can treat that burn.
Sarah rolls up and admits to exaggerating the situation to get Stephen over for help. Stephen and Gail continue to argue a bit about who loves Audrey the most when a nurse tells them that Audrey has internal bleeding and she needs surgery. And they don't fight, but it's almost like they were supposed to fight over who gets to sign the consent form. So Stephen and
Right.
Gail now argue about which one of them was the favourite. Stephen says, well, you had all the Christmases, and Gail's quick to point out, yeah, she was absolutely mullered last Christmas, by the way, which she was. And that was when remember when it was still funny?
Right, yeah. When was that?
Christmas. All Stephen has now are regrets about things that he never did and time that he spent away. Outside the barber's, Nick wonders if Audrey fell over when she was actually sitting on the bike, which I think is a good question. These are the sort of questions that
Right.
you have, right?
Yeah.
What was she doing to the bike for it to fall over? Was she trying to start it or something?
Right, yeah.
Gail,
Which wouldn't be... I mean, she was she had been drinking all day. She
All
was
day.
drinking at the barber's, saying, even as they've explained to her, you can't be drinking and cutting hair. It's a liability.
she was battering on the Rover's door to get in at 11 o'clock.
In the
I presume
morning.
that's when they open up, right? So Gail texts them to let everyone know that Audrey, 80-year-old, is out of surgery and fine. In the hospital, Audrey comes round and is thrilled to see her gorgeous son. Oh, Stephen, you're here. Gail says, how are you, ma'am? Oh, you're here too. And she accuses Gail of being a ghoul. Again, just there for the inheritance. And she orders Gail to leave. And sadly, Gail does.
Right. And yet, sadly, we don't really get to see the emotion on Gail's face. Thanks to that hideous haircut that they still insist on keeping her in.
Right.
You cannot see her face as she's, I'm assuming, weeping under there.
Right.
Give Gail a better haircut, please.
And that's how we end this week's episodes. I think that I like Audrey.
No, you don't.
But when you think about it, she really isn't a nice person.
She's not a nice person, and she's never been a nice person. She was horrible to Gail as a child. as Gail points out to Stephen, that, you know, she was basically Cinderella in that house, cleaning up after him, you know, as Audrey praised Stephen for eating his carrots that he dropped on the floor for Gail to pick up. And also, you know, Audrey abandoned Gail multiple times when she was a child.
They seem to be getting on better now that they're both
Old,
right? They have a kind of more of a friendship.
yeah.
Or I think Audrey sees it as just a friendship, or primarily a friendship.
Right. Whereas Gail still desperately wants her to be her mother.
Right.
And will never be.
Oh, that's so sad.
It's so sad. It's so sad. This is such a sad storyline. And yet they still keep trying to make it funny. They still keep trying to add humor to it. Like the fact that Audrey gets trapped under that bike because she's scared by the weasel.
Mm-hmm.
That's been there the whole time.
Yeah.
She trips over the elephant, which we never see get put on the floor.
I think we're led to believe that Kelly put it on the floor or something.
Why would Kelly put it on the floor?
I have no idea. This, though,
The whole Ryan thing, you know, her thinking that she could, if she was 20 years younger, she could get into Ryan's pants. Ha ha ha, ha ha, ha ha.
there were parts of it that were funny, though.
Right, but is it
The Evel Knievel line I thought was pretty good.
fair enough? But is it appropriate in this storyline?
Well, there's kind of gallows humor, I guess, but I think this is the sort of storyline that I think I maybe called for this. I was like a few weeks ago, this was where I was wanting the story to go, that looking at an old woman becoming an alcoholic.
Becoming?
I wasn't sure if this is a thing, but I think it is a thing.
Yeah.
And from what I'm seeing, I think it's probably a more prevalent thing than society would like us to think, that you have
Right.
these old people who have
Nothing else to do.
have as little to do as the youth of today,
Right.
who just sit and get out their tits on G&Ts all day. Because it is desperately sad that you
Yes.
expect, or you hope that in your dotage that your life is a little more organised and
Right.
and more focused on the things that bring you joy, and not just spending all your money and all your time in your pub trying to get out of the reality that you're in.
Right.
At that to get to that point in your life successfully, like I've managed to avoid dying up until now, to celebrate that by doing that seems
Yeah.
just awful.
Right.
What a waste of the last bits of your life.
And, you know, even though she kind of made things worse, I like that at one point, you know, it's Audrey and Rita together, and that we see kind of a different aspect of that, because while Rita is perfectly happy on one day to get bladdered with Audrey,
She enables Audrey that day, right?
she enables her, but she enables her from a place of assuming that they are in the same place in their life. Whereas Rita, the family that Rita has is the family that Rita chose, you know?
Mm-hmm.
She has basically her adopted daughters, like Jenny, and adopted granddaughters like Daisy, that she chooses to spend time with when she wants.
Yeah, I'm scared to mention Gemma just in case she reappears, but you know.
But does it? Yeah, she has these people in her lives that she considers her children, but who also have other lives and other families, and it's a chosen thing. Whereas I feel like, and she has a job that she likes, and she has responsibilities that again she has chosen.
Yeah, she said the right things to Audrey. I think that
Audrey just took in the wrong way.
right. There is
Because Audrey is a different person than Rita.
Rita's idea of growing old disgracefully could be getting pie-eyed on G&Ts and tequila slammers, but then not drinking again for the rest of the week.
Right, yeah.
Or for the rest of the month or whatever.
Right.
But so that's the first sad side of it that Audrey has chosen to ignore, is that that Rita was able to do this one-off,
Right.
and then just go back into recovery and stuff,
And go to work and have a life.
right. And Audrey's not been able to do that.
Right.
And then the going back to work thing is, well, this is what gives me a reason to get up in the morning for Rita. Literally, a reason to get up in the morning to fix the papers, right?
Right.
So that gives her purpose. And suggesting that to Audrey probably isn't a bad thing in and of itself, but given the situation that Audrey's in, it appears to
And
be...
who Audrey is.
Right. It appears to be a bad idea because now you have drunken Audrey with a pair of scissors
Right. And bossing
trying to sexually assault Ryan.
and bossing people around and firing people willy-nilly without consideration as to what that's going to do for the business. Instead of, sobering up and then going to David and Maria and saying, look, I'd like to come back to work. What can I do?
Yeah, the mistake was going to work that day.
Right. While
after
still
drinking
drunk.
that much.
Right.
To drink more.
But again, that's what Audrey does.
Yeah, and she's been doing it for years. And
To be
nobody stopped
sensible
it.
and sit down and talk to them sensibly and find out a way to come back to work in a responsible way. That's not Audrey, but that is Rita.
Yeah. Yeah, because Audrey's life has been really, going through the classics again. A kind of marriage of not really convenience with Alf, and I think she did love Alf, but a lot of that relationship was about Alf's position in society, how he was
Right.
high up in the council and
Right.
and the mayor.
Right.
So she was lady mayor, and so she was gaining the benefits of that, being sort of kind of Weatherfield high society. And then later on, she's chased by Fred, the butcher, who's a man of certain means and wealth himself, and she kind of leads him on a little bit, and then continually breaks it off when he shows signs of being serious. So she has this kind of aspect of her life where she has been able to get through on the back of others.
Right.
And then the hairdresser is a success, that she makes a success of it by and large as well from the people that she has working for her.
Right.
But yeah, so she's found herself in this kind of really weird part of her later life where she doesn't really have anything else, because it was almost like the hairdresser was a hobby than a purpose.
Right.
Her purpose has been a strange one throughout her life.
Right. And throughout it all, whenever anything goes wrong, she just blames Gail. Because I think she resents Gail for being born.
And also being able to pull herself up by her socks and
Right.
and raise a family and go through all the crises and
Right.
serial killers that she's managed to get through and come out the other end.
Right.
And be at that age where she is still looking for something to keep herself
Right.
occupied, doing those cleaning jobs that she
Right.
shouldn't be doing.
And being happy about it and enjoying it and just loving it, the way she's happily washing those windows with her headphones on, although I'm not quite sure they're over her ears because, again, that hair,
Right.
But by the simple act of being born, Gail kind of put something on Audrey's life that she should have been responsible for. And Audrey has always resented that. So now, and because she has, throughout her whole life, as you pointed out, all of her successes have been off the backs of other people. At this point, she makes the assumption that that's what Gail's like too. And she's projecting her personality.
Yeah, Gail seems to more or less get her joy from her family, whereas Audrey's gets most of her regret from hers.
Yeah. Yeah. And while Gail gets most of her joy from her family, Gail is also able to say, right, that's enough. I've had enough of you guys I'm going to Thailand for a while.
Right.
And is able to do it. And still loves her family and still comes back and loves her family and still, gets as much as she can from just the joy of being with her family and helping her family out and being there for her family.
Right.
Which, let's be fair, that family takes full advantage of her
Sure.
when she's there.
Oh yeah,
and she's aware of that.
She's
but
a
that
cleaner
doesn't
and she's a
stop her.
babysitter and she's doing the shopping.
Driving people around, and then when she asks one of them to do something, they resent it.
Right.
Like Shona does with the whole watching of Audrey. It's
Right.
like, well, she's just asking you to do this one thing.
Right.
It shouldn't be that hard.
I'm excited by Stephen's return though.
Yeah.
I think
It's nice to have a different accent on the show.
Isn't it though?
It's fun. It's like when an American stumbles onto Doctor Who for no reason. Which reminds me, did you see that
No.
Neil Patrick Harris
Oh, I did actually see that.
is playing the toy maker in the 60th anniversary special
in Emmerdale?
in Doctor Who.
Okay.
So he plays a bad guy with lots of eyeliner
Oh,
and a top hat.
good for him. No, I'm pleased to see that. I'm enjoying this latest trend that we're kind of in the middle of. We're still waiting for Spider to come back. I think that might be
Right.
next week or the week after, but that's coming soon.
That's coming. It's a coming.
And we've got Wendy back, and now we've got Stephen back. It's like good that they're bringing some of these old. They don't even need to be well loved. I think it's just always good to see
It's
these
nostalgia
people that you
bait.
saw. Right, and I complain about it quite a bit, nostalgia bait, but here I'm all for it.
Right, because we complain all the time when characters who have left the show don't come back for
Right.
reasons that they absolutely should have come back for.
Yeah.
I still don't know why Tim's mum was on the street, though.
I think there's going to be a little thing with her and Stephen. That's what I'm thinking.
Oh, okay, yeah. No, that wouldn't be bad.
What did you think I was hinting at before?
Brian.
Oh, fuck no.
Because remember when she was calling his head a potato?
Yeah.
And a bean.
I was like, thank goodness it's not just me that says these things. It's in the show now, it's canon. Yes, Sniper's Dream.
She doesn't say Sniper's Dream, though.
She doesn't. Maybe next time. Anyway, that was the week that was Coronation Street. What was your moment of the week?
Tim and Sally cracking each other up by staring into one another's eyes.
I really did like that.
Yeah.
That was a nice little moment.
Right. Yeah. And I like the way that this story is heading, where they're learning how to be intimate with one another
Yeah.
without the reliance on sex.
Right. I like the
When
the fact
Sally
that the
starts laughing
storyline-
too.
The fact that the storyline can have gone on for too long, which I still think it has. It's good that there are little aspects of it individually that still work, and I think it
Right.
worked much better this
I
week.
think there's up until this week, I thought the storyline has gone on too long and it's ridiculous and it's not going anywhere. Now it finally feels like they're actually pushing it somewhere new and different and interesting,
Right.
which will develop personal growth in both of these characters. And I'm all for that.
There we go.
Yeah.
That is then Sally laughing.
Sally giggling into Tim's eyes.
It's a
Moment of the week.
Honorable mention to Kathy's ride in the Woody last Friday that we
moment
that we
of last
missed.
week, probably.
That
Yeah.
absolutely would have been our moment of last week.
Because what did we have? I think there was something.
I can't even
ridiculous, wasn't
remember.
there?
It was so unimportant.
Right. Our boring moment of the week.
I want to say Brian, but there's nothing really.
No, for me, I think it's Max just refusing to have one redeemable feature
Yes.
again.
No, agreed. Absolutely.
Fair enough. That's
Max
it.
is our.
Boring moment of the week.
Yeah, it needs to go somewhere. It can't just be repeating.
Right. Yeah.
Right,
They
and-
need to take a lesson from the Sally and Tim storyline and actually have that child develop some feeling.
We get it. He's currently a nasty bit of work. We get it.
We get it.
Now do something with it.
Right.
All right then. Well, we won't be back next week. Maybe we'll do this on Wednesday again.
Maybe we'll see what happens. We'll see we're taking microphones with us, aren't we?
We are taking microphones, but we're leaving next Friday, so we won't see next Friday's episode. We might do something midweek. We might do something at some point during the next couple of weeks. So it's a very much flying by the seat of our pants schedule for the next
Literally.
until the middle of July. So we will speak to you again sometime soon. I guess that's probably the best that we can do, right?
Yes.
So if you want to get in contact with us in the meantime, we're the Talk of the Street at gmail.com. We're at Corrie Podcast on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. You can shout me and Helen a coffee by heading to ko-fi.com. That's ko-fi.com/the Talk of the Street. Check out the clicky section of voggle.co.uk for links to our merch store and YouTube channel. And if you're so inclined, please leave a rating and a review on the iTunes or your podcast provider of choice. Thanks for making it to the end of another episode. And we will be back next week with more
Talk of the Street.
The Talk of the Street.
Bye.